every time I modeled a tank so far, I went really far into the details and it ended up taking me about 2 or 3 weeks to finish a tank. My last tank that I made was the longest one. It took me forever to make that thing. Now that looks really cool, but it's not very practical if you want to use a tank for anything like a video game. Because if you're making a video game, you can't really afford to spend 2 or 3 weeks on making just a single model. And also, if you spend that much time making the details, the model is going to be way too detailed for an actual video game, right? So what we're going to do today is we're going to try to take a reasonable time frame and we're going to try to model a decent tank within that time frame. So I'm just going to take this one video, I'm not going to speed anything up, I'm just going to try to take about half an hour, or I'm going to record this for as long as I have to, but I think it's going to take about half an hour to make a decent tank. And let's see what we can do. And I've got my blueprint set up over here, and if you want to know how to do this, I have a separate tutorial where I showed you guys how to prepare some references. I also have some reference pictures on the side here. This is pretty much the setup I always use when I'm making a tank. But we have our cube here, and let's go over to side view. Let's go over to side view, and let's line this cube up with one of the angles on the main body of our tank. Let's line it up with the back here, this corner in the back over here. And let's lift the bottom face up in edit mode. Let's lift the bottom face up here. So it's kind of where we would imagine the floor of the tank being. I think it will be somewhere just above the middle of the wheels here, or maybe somewhere around the middle of the wheels. Doesn't really matter too much. Okay, and then I'm going to take this vertex in the back here, and I'm going to move that a little bit forward because you can see that this back part is kind of inclined or declined, depends on how you want to look at it. And I'm going to take the front face and I'm going to push that to the front. Now at the front here, let's pull this face down a little bit. It's a little bit too high. At the front here, we have this kind of nose sticking out of the tank. So let's add a loop cut right there, right across the main body of the tank. And let's push this face in the front. Let's just push that a little bit forward so we get this kind of angled shape here. And let's also extrude that, and let's line the vertices up here with the blueprint. Let's put them on the angles over there. And now this is very roughly the main shape of the tank. Okay. One more thing that we have to do is we have to take this edge back here, and we have to adjust it so it kind of has the same angle as this panel on the side here. You can see this is kind of, it's not really flat, but it's kind of angled to the back. So I'm going to grab these vertices in the back here, and in side view I'm going to press G 2 times, and I'm just going to drag these down so they follow this edge and they kind of get the same angle as the blueprint. And now if you look at your reference images, you're going to see that apart from the main structure of the tank, above the tracks there's like these kind of masses above the tracks there. So we have to make those, and you can imagine those being kind of like I won't say wings, but they're kind of like this face right here would be sticking out to the side. Okay, so let's extrude those and scale them up on the y-axis. And now this is kind of the shape that we want. Okay, let's go to top view, and let's line that up with these edges on the blueprint there. Let's scale them up. Now the blueprint is not really entirely exact, so we're just going to roughly follow what the blueprint says, but you don't have to worry about it too much. Okay. And now this gives us this part about the tracks here as well, and this is pretty much the main body of the tank now. Let me show you something. If you go to front view, okay, you can see that we lined up our model pretty well with the blueprint on the side here, but when we go to front view or the back view, it doesn't really line up that well at all. What's happening there? Well, this is a pretty common problem with blueprints. They're not exactly the same from all perspectives. Now, sometimes it's a scale issue, you can change it up, but I don't really like to think about that too much. It's not really a problem, okay? As long as you follow one of them, it doesn't really matter too much. You can see that it's not really high enough on this part, you see, but if we go to side view, then it's perfectly fine. So let's not even worry about that. But I want to also take these edges over here, because in front view you can see that these are kind of bent downwards. So let's take those 2 edges and let's just drag them down. We're gonna have to do these one by one. We're gonna take this edge, press G twice, and let's type in something like 0.2 or maybe minus 0.2, just so it goes down. Let's go to this one as well. This one is gonna be 0.2. No, also minus 0.2. Okay, so GG minus 0.2, and now they're kind of angled downwards like they should be, like they are in the blueprint. Okay, so now this is the main body of the tank, and we're gonna want to add some of these armor panels here on the sides, okay, just to fill this in. Now before we do that, I'm just going to go ahead and add myself a mirror modifier. So let's delete one half of this. Let's add a mirror modifier on the y-axis, and now we have the same thing going on both sides, so we don't have to do this twice. Alright. So I'm going to go over here, I'm going to take this edge from the side here. I'm going to lift that up a little bit, I'm going to push it back just a little bit, and then let's go to side view, and then let's extrude this forward so it kind of so it stays just above the edge over here, and also just a little bit in front of it. And we're going to take this new face and we're going to extrude it down a little to give it some thickness. And let's also push it out to the side here, so it's kind of just a little bit outside there. And this is a little armor panel that you see in the front here. Now we also have this triangular armor panel on the side here. So we're also going to take this edge, we're going to duplicate that. Let's go back to side view. We're going to lift that up and try to line it up with this line on the blueprint here. Alright. And we're going to, let's bring this forward a little bit, it's a little bit too far to the back. And we're going to take this, we're going to extrude it down. We're going to extrude it down and line it up with the bottom part of this armor panel. Okay, so just take this down, we're going to line it up with this part here. And we're going to take this whole face, we're going to extrude it outwards. Something like that. Let's see what the blueprint says. We're going to extrude it out a little bit further, something like that. And then we're going to take this edge, we're going to drag it, so press G twice and pull it down so we have that kind of triangular shape. And let's just remove the doubles, we'll merge the double vertices by distance. And let's also just pull these edges forward a little bit so they have the right angle. And we're also going to pull these backwards just a little bit, also so they have the right angle. Now you might want to correct your normals there every once in a while, but this is pretty much this is roughly the shape that we're looking for here for the armor panels on the side. And for now, we're going to leave our body as it is right now. So let's go ahead and work on the turret a little bit before we go ahead and add some more details here. And for the turret, we're going to place our 3D cursor right there in the middle. We're going to go to top view, and we're going to add a circle. And this circle is going to have about 32 vertices. That's good enough for me. Hold on a second, let me close this. And let's leave our 3D cursor there. And let's try to put this in the middle of the turret. And then in edit mode, let's scale this circle up so it kind of aligns with the circle in the blueprint. Okay. Now let's go to side view. Let's go to side view. Let's take this circle just a little bit higher up, and let's extrude that. But before we extrude it, we're gonna want to get rid of some of these vertices, okay? Because you can see that the circle goes here, and then it's just kind of like a straight line continuing to the front. So let's delete something like up to here. We're gonna delete everything, or up to here. Let's delete those vertices. And then we're going to take these vertices, we're going to drag them forward. We're going to drag them forward on the x-axis, and we're going to scale them down together on the y-axis so they kind of come closer. And now they're kind of following the line that we want them to follow over there, okay? So let's fill those in, let's fill in the face. Let's extrude that up a little bit, let's give this some thickness. And then let's bring it to the bottom part, or we can even bring it up here. Let's bring it all the way to the top of this turret. And then we want to join these two vertices here so we can have an angle, because this part is kind of pulling downwards, right? But if we just pull that down, this face is going to get bent and all ugly. So let's select these two vertices, let's press J, and we're going to take this face, or this edge over here, and we're going to pull that down nicely. And now you can see that it looks pretty natural, alright? And you can also see that we have to connect this, so we have to add another circle at the bottom here. Let's place our 3D cursor to the object, let's add another circle at the bottom there, 32 vertices again. Let's just fill that in and extrude it down, so it's kind of just the what do you call that? Anyway, the bottom part of the turret there. And now we have a very rough shape for our turret. And now I want to make this kind of container thing on the back. Okay, so let's take a couple of these edges, a couple of these faces from the back here. I'm going to take, let's say, 6 faces. I'm going to duplicate those, and I'm going to separate those into a new object for now. And in top view, I'm going to leave my 3D cursor in the middle of this circle that I just created at the bottom here. 3D cursor there. And then set your pivot point to 3D cursor, and let's go to top view, let's extrude this and scale it up on the Y and the X axis, something like that. So it just kind of starts going out in that direction, maybe a little bit smaller. But I also want to scale everything down a little bit, or let's make a loop cut on both of these faces right here. Let's delete those and let's fill those in now. So now it's a little bit shorter, and we can also pull some of these edges. We don't even have to worry about that side because we have a mirror modifier. So when we add this back, it's going to be mirrored. So let's just pull this edge a little bit inward, and now we have pretty much the shape that we want. And let's also just pull this down a little bit because it's not exactly the same object as the turret. Let's pull this up a little bit. Now if we join that, well, we don't have a mirror modifier on our turret yet, but let's just select all this and let's just duplicate it back. I made a little mistake there. And now we have this kind of shape in the back there, okay? So the next thing we're going to want to do is focus on the front part of the turret, all right? So let's add a loop cut down around this whole turret there. And we want to make this part in the front kind of stick out, like a little triangle there. Let's place our 3D cursor there. Let's select this vertex here and let's scale that by like 1.1. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Scale that by 1.1. Now this face remained perfectly flat because we've scaled it up from this vertex over there. So just followed the same line. But this part is kind of sticking forward. So that's pretty much the shape that we want there. And then we're going to place our 3D cursor there and we're going to add a plane. Let's turn this plane by 90 degrees. Let's scale it down. Scale it down to something like that. And we're going to push it back and we're going to scale it up on the y-axis. All right. And now once we did that, we're going to, let's push it even further back a little bit. So it's kind of emerging from the tank there, from the turret. And then once we did that, we're going to duplicate this face in the front here. And we're going to scale it up a little bit because we have another face coming in the front there. And let's extrude that once again. And now let's work on some of these details here. Okay, let's take 2 loop cuts. Let's scale those out. And now we want to make these 2 parts on the side. Let's see if we can get a better look at those. See, these 2 parts on the side of this armor panel kind of stick into the front. Okay, so let's scale this down a little more. And then we're going to take these 2 faces and we're going to extrude those. We're going to extrude those out just a little. And we're also going to angle these. So let's scale them up on the y-axis from each other. And now we have that then pretty cool shape for this turret. Maybe I want to bring these a little bit closer together, but now I'm just splitting hairs. And I want to add 2 more loop cuts in the middle. Okay, I'm going to scale these up. And I'm going to add like 3 loop cuts across. Okay, I'm going to take these edges here. I'm going to scale them up. And then I'm also going to take these vertices here and I'm going to scale them up because I want to get this kind of round shape around the gun. So we're going to select this shape that we just made. We're going to extrude that out. And then with the 3D cursor in the middle, we're going to kind of scale this down because you can see that it's kind of scaled down when it sticks out. And then we're also going to scale it down a little more on the y-axis. All right, let's fix our normals there. And now we can start working on the gun. This is usually the most important part of any tank. Let's place a circle there. Let's give this only about 16 vertices. Okay, let's rotate that 90 degrees. Scale this down a little. Let's go back to our blueprint in top view. Okay, and this is about the right thickness. So let's just give this some detail. Let's go back to a median pivot point. Scale this down and extrude it out. Scale it down a little more. And then we're going to extrude out the main part of the gun. And then once again we have another ring there where it scales down a little more. Let's extrude that again and again, scale it down, and once again scale it down. Just pretty much extrude and scale. That's pretty much all we're doing over there. And now at the end of the gun we have this, so we can kind of make this part a little bit bigger. Just a little bit bigger there. This is the base of the tip of the gun. And now we can scale it up and just kind of follow this blueprint here. And now let's make this ring that kind of sticks out here. So let's extrude that on the Y and the Z axis. Like that, and we're going to scale it down a little bit on the X axis. And we're also going to extrude this part. Maybe we can make this a little bit smaller. Okay, let's scale that down. And let's also make this part sticking out at the far end of the gun. Okay. And now we're just going to make a hole here at the end. Now this hole here, we can cut this out. We can kind of delete some of these faces and fill it in. But I'm not going to bother with that right now. I think maybe it's better if we just do that with textures. We just make a dark mark right there, because otherwise it's going to take us too much time for this video. But for now, let's just connect this gun to the rest of the tank there. And now you see we have our turret nicely set up. All right. And now before we start working on any more of these details around this tank, like some of these hatches here, or some of the back parts, we're also going to do those. Let's just go ahead and create some wheels really quick and some tracks. This is usually the hardest part of any tank model. So we're going to try to keep it simple. Okay, let's make a circle with 32 vertices. Let's rotate it around the x-axis. And let's scale this down and try to get the same shape as we have in our blueprint there. So I think it's going to have to be a little bit bigger. Let's fill that in and scale it up a little bit more. And let's try to zoom in on one of these wheels over here. I don't have too much of a close-up photo of any wheels here, but I think it's something like, we have a cylinder, okay? We have a cylinder. We won't make it all the way out to the edge, but let's make it a little bit before the edge here. And or maybe we can push it out a little bit more. And then I'm going to make 2 loop cuts there, which I'm going to expand out towards the edges, because the rims of these wheels are not very thick at all. You can see that it's a pretty thin shape there. Then we're going to extrude this. I'm going to scale it in on the Z and the X axis, so it's kind of like this. And this part is not really going to be visible, so it doesn't really matter too much what you do here. And then we're going to take this shape at the end here. We're going to scale that down a little, and we're going to scale it inwards. And then we're going to scale it. We're going to extrude it inwards again and scale it down towards the middle. But let's also scale this down a little bit so it's not too sharp at the edge there. And then we have this circle in the middle here. We're going to extrude that out a little bit, and extrude it inwards, and we're going to make a hole right there. Okay. Now, if you want to, you can go ahead and add some more details and bevels and screws to this. I'm not going to mess with any of that right now because I want to keep things fairly simple. And let's just make this hole a little bit smaller. And I'm going to start duplicating this wheel here so we can have the other wheels. Now you can see that we have 1, 2, 3, 4 wheels in the front and 4 more wheels in the back. So let's only take the front wheels for now. Let's take the front wheels, let's duplicate this 4 times. And then we're going to take all these wheels and we're going to duplicate them again. And we're going to push them back a little bit, like that. And then these are going to be the back wheels, like so. Alright, so let's line that up with the blueprint once again, or just try to make them in the middle of the other wheels. And do we have any collisions there? No, we don't. That's perfect, right? If you have any collisions, you can make this cylinder in the middle a little bit smaller, but it doesn't really matter because it's not really visible at all. We do have some collision in the back, so let's take all these wheels and let's push them forward or outward a little bit more. And that's pretty much all we need. Now again, we have some more details for the sprockets of this tank. I'm not going to spend too much time on those. Those are usually also very detailed and they take a lot of time to make. So I'm going to try to keep it kind of simple. Okay, let's just make a circle there. Let's make a circle right there. Let's fill that in. Okay, let's take it out a little bit, and then I am going to extrude it to make a cylinder like that. And we're going to do the same thing we did before. Okay, let's kind of scale up this loop cut, and we're going to scale this down. Make sure the 3D cursor is in the middle. I'm going to scale this down, make a cylinder in the middle. I think this doesn't have to be so thick, so let's also kind of reduce that. And let's delete the other side. We're also going to use a mirror modifier on this because this is going to be kind of detailed, but let's do the mirror modifier right now. Maybe we want to do it. We have to place our 3D origin or our origin point right there, and then we can do the mirror modifier like so. We're going to select this whole loop out here. We're going to go to the select menu and we're going to go to checker deselect. And this way only every other face remains selected. So watch what happens when we go to individual origins and we extrude those out. We want to delete the X mirror because otherwise it's going to be extruded in a wrong way. We're going to extrude those out a little bit to make these teeth for the cog. And then we're going to scale these faces down at the ends. Okay. So scale these down just so it looks like a very simple cog. And that's pretty much very roughly the shape that we want. So let's also just kind of make this look a little bit cooler by just adding a little bit of detail to the middle. But for now, that's good enough. Okay, for this simple tutorial, that's good enough. Okay, that's good enough. Let's try to make this so it's a little bit closer to the edges, so it doesn't get in the way with the other wheels. Maybe we should push it forward a little bit more, something like that. And let's just keep things really simple. So let's just take the same sprocket and take that all the way to the back because I don't want to do this twice. Okay, just to save some time. If you want to, of course, you can go ahead and make a more detailed sprocket for the back, make it more realistic. But I'm just going to keep things like simple like this. All right, let's move the rest of the tank a little bit higher above, so we can start working on the tracks. Okay, I'm going to create a curve here. So let's place a simple curve. Let's make a path right there. And let's go to side view, and we just want to take our time to wrap this path around the edges of these wheels here. Now guys, I have a separate tutorial where I showed you how to make some really detailed tracks, how to even rig them and animate them even with physics, so you can even make some suspensions. If you want to learn how to do that, I'm going to leave a link for those videos in the description, so be sure to check those out if you want to learn how to make some proper tank tracks. This is now just for a very simple demonstration, so this is not a very detailed tutorial. But I have some really cool videos for track modeling, so or track rigging and everything. So be sure to check those out because I think those are really helpful if you want to make a proper track rig. But for now, we're just going to wrap this curve around here. We're just going to keep this really simple. Pretty much every track tutorial is going to tell you this, to just wrap a curve around the wheels. So that's exactly what we're going to do. That's pretty much the simplest thing we can do here. And now that we have our curve wrapped around there, we're going to actually model one of the track pads. And so let's try to keep that simple as well. Let's make a simple cube. Okay, let's scale this down. And let's make this a little bit longer so it's about the same length as the wheels. Now it's really hard to see what the individual tracks actually look like here, but I don't want to make them as detailed as this. So let's do something pretty simple, okay? Let's make it pretty thin, and let's make it kind of stick out at the edge there. Okay, I'm just being creative. This is not really the real look of the track. I don't really know what it really looks like, so I'm just kind of trying to be creative and come up with my own little design. This is the fun thing about modeling tanks, because you have to kind of come up with your own stuff every once in a while. So let's also take these edges right here. Let's make some more loop cuts there. I don't even want to make this too detailed, so I don't want to spend too much time with this. But let's bring these a little bit closer, and then I'm just gonna make these points here kind of stick out. So scale those down a little bit, and let's do something like that. And this is what's going to connect our track links. Let's also do the same thing in the back there. So the same thing in the back here. So let's kind of maybe we can even make this face wider here. Okay, so we're gonna take these two faces, we're gonna make those wider, and this is going to be the other side, which is going to connect with the same tracks on the other end. That's good enough for now. I don't even want to spend any more time with this. Let's just lower these, and then that's all we're gonna do for now. So let's add an array modifier there. You can see this kind of connects like a puzzle. Let's try to set the offset to something like 0.9, and then let's just go ahead and crank the number up on that a little bit. And we're gonna add a curve modifier, and we're gonna set the curve that we just created. Now sometimes your curve modifier doesn't work too well, so you want to play around with the axes a little bit, see if any of those are going to fix the problem. In my case, I don't think they will. So I am going to have to reposition the tracks here. Let's just keep this on the x-axis, and I'm going to make, I think I can just lift this up on the z-axis, okay? And then it's going to kind of fall into the right place. I think the problem here is that the origins are too far apart, so I'm going to place the origin of the curve to the same place as the origin of the tracks, and now they kind of fall into shape. Let's also just rotate this track around itself by 180 degrees, and that way when it's wrapped around, then it's facing in the right direction. Okay, now we're not even going to bother with lining this up with the cogs on the sprocket right now, because that's a whole different story. It's going to take way too much time. Let's just add a little bit more numbers, and this pretty much wraps all the way around the tracks, and that's pretty much all we want for now. Okay, so let's leave the modifiers as they are for now, and let's move this down, 3D cursor in the middle, and then let's select all these wheels here. Let's select all the wheels and the sprockets and the tracks and everything there, even the curve. Hold on a second, let me select the curve there too, and then we're going to duplicate this and scale it to -1 along the y-axis. Make sure your pivot point is a 3D cursor, because we want to scale it across the middle. Scale it to -1 on the y-axis, and now you have all this on the other side as well, and make sure you correct your normals when you do that. Okay, so now we have some tracks on our tank too, and now we pretty much have a very simple shape for our tank, but we're going to add a few more details, like a couple of these hatches at the top here, so we're just not going to spend too much time with that. Let's add a circle at the top here. Let's add a circle. Let's put it in place there. Most of this can be made with some textures. If you're good at texturing, you can probably do a lot of this stuff with textures too. So let's just scale this down a little. Let's extrude it one more time. And let's add a bevel on top, and that's pretty much all we want to do with this one right now. And then we're gonna add another little detail at the top here. And place my 3D cursor over there. I'm gonna add a plane, and this plane I'm gonna line it up with this kind of little hatch on the side here. So let's align these edges with that thing. Let's extrude this out, and let's round the edges off with some bevels, because it's kind of like it's not a perfectly square shape. It's kind of rounded at the edges. That's exactly what we're gonna do again. And then let's maybe add a couple more details by extruding this down and inwards. And maybe we can add a sort of cube there, just to look like a kind of handle or something. I don't even know what, but it doesn't really matter too much. You can do whatever you want here. Let's scale it up a little, and let's push this back, and it's sort of like some kind of opening handle or something. And maybe one more circle in the back here, just as just as a little finisher, a little extra detail there. Okay, let's put that in place right there, scale it down, shoot it up, and again we're gonna add a little tiny cube just to make a sort of handle over there. We can maybe rotate that and put it in place right there. Okay, so now I have a couple of details on your turret, and we're also going to make some of these exhaust pipes in the back here. So let's add a circle there. Let's add a mesh circle with 16 vertices. That's good enough. Let's do 24, just to be safe. Now let's scale this down. Let's pull it to the side, and we're going to bring it up and extrude it down. Make a kind of cylinder out of it. Let's go to side view because this stuff is kind of angled in an interesting way. So let's bring that in place there. Scale it up a little bit more. And now what we're going to do is we're going to delete a half of this cylinder right there, okay? Let's delete this whole half here. So the same thing at the bottom, delete all these vertices you don't need. And then we're going to take, I think we deleted them unevenly. I think we have a couple of extra edges on the side. I think we're good. Let's extrude those and push them towards the body of the tank, like so. And that is pretty much the main shape. So let's delete a couple of these edges here. Let's delete these and these vertices here. And this is pretty much the main shape of the exhaust pipe. So maybe we can add a solidify modifier to this to add some thickness. Okay, maybe we can add it inwards. And make sure you check even thickness when it's a kind of odd shape like this, so it doesn't create too much of a mess there. And we can add another circle right here. Let's add another circle there, and this is just to fill in the shape, so it's not really hollow inside because there's some kind of little system in there somewhere. So let's turn that, and let's just extrude that down, and just roughly get the shape that we want there. And maybe we should even bring this down a little bit lower, something like that. And then also let's attach that to the main body of the tank. So our mirror modifier is applied to that, and it is also going to show up on the other side then. Let's pull this outwards a little bit more, and let's see if there's any more really important details. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add a couple of panels in the back here because that's going to make it much easier to texture. So I'm going to take this edge here, and I'm going to scale it down, and I'm going to push it forward, and then I'm going to make a sort of plane out of it. And I'm going to select that face, and I'm just going to extrude it outwards a little bit. Now this is not really perfectly straight, but it doesn't matter at all. Let's push this down a little bit, and let's add two loop cuts there. One of them is going to be a little bit further to the front, and this one's going to be a little bit bigger. So let's extrude this, scale it inwards, and let's extrude it inwards again towards the bottom. And this is going to be the kind of exhaust system here, or some kind of cooling. You can see that there's these kind of grids back there. And we're going to make those more detailed with some textures, but for now, let's just keep that as it is. Let's make another panel in the back here. Let's extrude that forward, alright? This is also showing up on the other side right away. So we can do the same thing again. Okay, let's extrude this down. Let's bring this backwards and make another little kind of exhaust system there. And now I don't really want to use my mirror modifier anymore because I think everything is going to remain the same. So I'm going to apply that. I want to add some stuff to the middle here. I want to add a circle right there, 16 vertices, just a little small detail in the back here just to make this look decent, okay? And we're going to extrude that a couple more times and give it a kind of interesting shape, so it's kind of like some kind of other exhaust system in the back there. And maybe we can make another circle like that there. So let's just duplicate that, bring it to the front there. And this is going to be some kind of hatch. I don't even know what, doesn't even matter too much in the back there. And now the last details that we're going to work on for this particular model is these little hatches in the front there. So we're going to keep that really simple. Let's add a circle right there. Let's align our view with this face first because it's not exactly angled in a very simple way. So select those faces and press Shift and 7 on the numpad. And then you want to add a circle and make sure you align it with your view. Okay, so let's do 32 vertices there, and now this circle has the same angle as this panel in the front there. Okay, so we're going to scale that down, fill it in, and then we're going to extrude it out, and we're going to scale it down a little bit, and we're going to add a bevel to that. Okay, this is going to be the kind of machine gun hole right there, and then we're going to add a simple cube, scale it up on the y-axis, push this back, okay, and this is where we're going to make the hole for our gun. Let's add some bevels to the edges here because I think it's going to look much better if we just add some small bevels right there. And then we're gonna extrude that inwards. Okay, maybe let's make that a little bit thinner, and let's push it back. And we also want to actually make the machine gun there, so let's add a circle with like 12 vertices there. Let's make sure that's small enough for us. Make sure that's small enough, and we're just gonna fill that in, extrude it out, and that's pretty much a little machine gun sticking out there. Maybe we can move that thing to the side a little bit like that. And let's get rid of this circle, and that's pretty much the machine gun. And we're also gonna make this very simple hatch right here in the front. So let's take a couple of cubes there, simple cube, scale it down. Let's push this up, and let's make that a little bit thinner. Okay, let's push that back a little bit. And let's also make it so that it has a kind of angle edge there. And we're going to scale this. We're going to duplicate this and scale it across the y-axis. Scale it to -1 across the y-axis. Okay, what did I do there? To scale it to -1 across the y-axis. So SY -1. We have that right there. And then we can take these two edges here. We're going to fill those together. We're going to push this backwards a little bit. And we're going to make the top part of the hatch there. Maybe add a bevel there. I just want to add a bevel to this edge here. And I think I want to push that a little bit more to the front. Okay. And finally, I'm going to add another cube right there at the bottom. And this is going to be the bottom part of the hatch. Now, this is not exactly like in the blueprint, but I like to add my own little personal touch to this stuff. So you can feel free to play around with this as much as you like. And let's just make the whole hatch a tiny bit smaller. Let's take all this and pull it down a little bit. And that's pretty much enough detail for a very simple tank model for now. I'm also going to finish this off with some bevels. You guys know I love bevels, so I'm going to add a couple to the front here, and maybe a few more bevels at the back here. Okay, and that is pretty much what we're going to do for a very simple tank model right there. Now, in the next video, I'm going to show you guys how to texture this thing. So we're going to use some procedural materials and some texture painting to get this thing a little bit more realistic looking. And we're also going to rig the tracks, and I'm going to show you guys how to make this so that it's a little bit more game ready than it is right now. Now, if you guys want to see me make another tank like this, let me know in the comments below, because I love making these videos. And I hope you found something helpful in this tutorial. If you do, check out my other videos, and please consider subscribing to the channel because it helps me out a lot. And I really hope to see you guys around in the next one.